Hello, I'm Brooke Dibley from Simply Speaking SLT, and you're watching my tutorial video for how to play PowerPoint games in Teletherapy. In this video, I will be demonstrating my tips and instructions using the games that I sell in my store. All the ones you're going to see today are actually free. However, this also may be helpful for other PowerPoint games. So let's start off with talking about where you get your PowerPoint games from. You may have got your PowerPoint game, if we're talking about mine anyway, from Teachers Pay Teachers or from my website. So when you go to Teachers Pay Teachers and you have purchased something, it will go into your purchase section right here. Or when you buy it, you'll just hit download. But if you haven't downloaded it yet, you would go to the My Purchase section, find the activity, and then hit download now. You can search right here to find the activity. Okay? And then what will happen is it will show up in your downloads folder. So let's have a look at my downloads folder now. So here is my downloads folder with a bunch of activities in it. Now, if you are on a Mac, it may not look like that the game is in a zipped folder. It may tell you that it has decompressed the file. It has not decompressed it enough for my PowerPoint games to work. So please open it up. Open up the folder, whether you're on a Windows computer or whether you're on a Mac, and you find the PowerPoint files and you extract them. Now you can either right click and hit copy and then paste it somewhere, or you can just drag it off onto your desktop, or you could drag it off into your downloads folder. And then it's going to decompress and you'll be able to use it. So that is the first tip I have for you. Okay, so for the purpose of this tutorial video, I have just extracted all of these activities out into my downloads folder, but I would recommend you go and save them somewhere you will be able to find them later. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is making sure that you open my PowerPoint games in the correct program. Now, on a Windows computer, if you have PowerPoint on your computer, it should hopefully just open up in PowerPoint when you click it to open it. However, if you are on a Mac, be careful that it hasn't automatically opened up in Keynote. Please note this also applies for Google Slides. These will not work in Google Slides. These will only work in PowerPoint. So you need to make sure that you open these in PowerPoint. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this game here by double clicking and see how it's loading PowerPoint. I need you to make sure that you open it up in PowerPoint on your computer, not online, not in the online browser. It has to be the PowerPoint software that's saved to your computer. Okay? Now, when you open up an activity, my freebies look a little bit different because of course there's a lot less in them because they're more like a free sample, but this is an example of what it might look like for you when you open an activity. Okay, I'm going to get rid of these design tools because you won't have those. All right, so most of my games will open up in protected view. That's fine. You can hit enable editing. It doesn't matter. I have everything locked down so that you wouldn't be able to mess anything up anyway. If you do find something that's movable, please don't move it. Please don't mess with it. The game might not work the way that intended if you do that. And also know that if there is slides where things aren't locked down, that's intentional because obviously it's a game that you've downloaded that you're able to edit, which we'll talk about in a moment. So from this window here, you can see we're still not in play mode. Like I can't hit this button and go anywhere because we haven't actually entered play mode yet. This mode here is just where you can adjust your settings. So all you have to do is adjust one setting and then save it and it'll be done forever. You won't need to do this again. Go to the slideshow tab, go to set up slideshow, and then make sure that it says browsed by individual window. Okay, let me show you why. When we enter play mode, which I'll show you how to do next, we want to make sure that this doesn't go to full screen mode so that we can split screen this with other things we might want to show our students. So for going into play mode, what you need to do is go to slideshow tab and then hit from the beginning. The other option you have is to hit F5, the key on your keyboard. F5 will also put you into play mode. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit from the beginning. And now, as you can see, this is open in its own window and I can move it around. So if I wanted to split screen it and make it a different size window so that I can also show my students other things, I can. Now, if you don't know how to split screen on your own computer, I recommend that you Google split screen on and then look up your type of computer, because Windows and Macs work differently and they all have quick and easy quick keys that will help you do that. So I'm not going to include that in this video because it's kind of different depending on which version of Windows you have, whether you have a Mac computer or not, but please do Google it and use the term split screen on and then it will tell you how to do it. Okay, and so then all the clickable buttons will work. So if you hover your mouse over something and it turns into a hand instead of like this pointer, then it's a clickable button. So I'm going to click the button. And then again, so like here, so most of my things, if it's a spinner or something that moves like this, we'll have a look at the spinner. Let's have a look at the spinner. Okay, so my pop-up pirate companion has a spinner, so let's go to initial F. Okay, so most of my games may have some kind of spinner. Probably at least 50% of my games have a spinner. To spin the spinners, you always click the spin button or the play button, and then click it again to make it stop. So as you can see, this is also making the arrows move in this one. But then if I hit it again, it will stop, and it stops on a number and on a picture. So that's how you make my spinners go. You can hit the play button and then hit it again to stop. Okay, I'm just clicking fast before, but this shows you how you can do that. Okay, and while I'm here, I'll also point out, let's go to medial F, that most of my games have navigation buttons. So you'll find a home button, an arrow to take you to the next slide. You may also see an exit button on some of my games. Please note, if there's no exit button, all you need to do to exit a PowerPoint game is right click and hit end show, and it will take you back to this edit mode here. So if you get into a game, realize you forgot to make it be able to be split screened and you forgot to set it up to browse in its own individual window the first time, you can just right click and hit end show. Do remember that if you set up the slideshow to browse in its own individual window and then you save a copy of it, then you won't have to do it again. So you just would work off that copy that you made. And then please also note that if you are using my games that don't have a navigation button, let's have a look at one that doesn't. Okay, so here's an example of a game that doesn't have navigation buttons on the actual slides that have the game on it. The reason being I wanted to fit all these cards in here for this memory game. Okay, so what you need to do to navigate games like this that don't have arrows and navigation is use your arrow keys on your keyboard. So I can move, see I was on S initial down here, and now if I hit the right arrow key, I'm going to go to S medial, right arrow key again, S final, for example, right? And then if I want to go back to the home slide, I can right click, hit go to slide, and then go to slide 1. Alternatively, I could have just hit end show and then start from the beginning again. Okay, so most of my games have navigation buttons, but I just wanted to point that out, that if you don't have navigation buttons, then that's what you need to do. Now, this video isn't about iPads, but if you do play my PowerPoint games on an iPad, you would swipe instead of use your arrow keys if there's no navigation buttons. Okay, now let's talk about the next tip. Okay, so in many of my downloads, you'll notice that I have two versions of each game. One is the 2013 and iPad version, and one is for 2016 and later. So if you have PowerPoint 2016 or later on your computer, open this version and it's going to look how we've been looking at, and you're going to be able to change the settings to browse in its own individual window, and you will be able to split screen. If you have PowerPoint 2013, some of my games of this file type, the 2016 file type, won't work for you because of the way that I secure them. So I've included that version for you, but do note that if you are on PowerPoint 2013, that you will not be able to split screen. Okay, so here's an example here of a file that's for 2013. I'm going to open it and then show you how it looks different. Okay, so see how this is full screen. Some of you may not even be able to see your bars here, but you would still get out of it the same way that you would hit end show. But notice how this didn't take me to the setup menu edit kind of space. It just opened instantly in play mode, which is actually quite nice to have something open instantly in play mode. But it just means that you won't be able to split screen. So if we go, it all still works exactly the same. and you know, it's just in full screen mode. Oh yeah, I won. Okay, so if you're playing this kind of game, you need to right click and hit enter, and when you do that, it's just going to close PowerPoint for you instead of taking you to that edit space. Now, a small percentage of the games in my store are macro enabled games. Now, what this means is that they will only work on a computer. They'll only work on a Mac or a Windows computer. Macro enabled games don't work on an iPad, and opening them up involves a little bit extra. So when you open up a macro enabled game, like my coloring game, which will open up here, my color and say Valentine's game, it's going to give you 2 warnings. So protected view, hit enable editing. You have to hit enable editing. And then you have to also hit enable content, okay? Because there's macros. So you may get a different type of security warning about macros, but you have to enable them. If you don't accept the macros, the games won't work. But this is only for my macro enabled games, obviously. Okay, and so then one thing I want to point out, so let me show you how this game works. So you pick your color and then you color in. What this is doing is, in the background, it's editing the PowerPoint file. So this means this will not work. My macro-enabled games will not work in the free version of PowerPoint, because the free version of PowerPoint won't let you edit. So if you're able to edit in PowerPoint, you know, like add a text box or something like that, or make your own PowerPoints, then you have the type of PowerPoint that you need to be able to play my macro-enabled games. I just wanted to point that out. And then I have one kind of game in my store currently, and I may add more, but it's a very, very small percentage of games that will only work on a Windows computer. So most of my games will work on a Mac and an iPad and on a Windows computer, but currently anything that has drag and drop pieces, like this game here, so it's gone, see how it's drag and drop pieces? Any of my board games with drag and drop pieces and are not going to work on a Mac computer. And it's because the coding that is used to help me drag and drop, it's talking to the Windows computer. And it's getting information from the Windows computer, telling it some different things. And that's why it won't work on a Mac. It's not that I could make it for a Mac and chose not to, or that it's too hard to make it for a Mac and I can't be bothered. That's not the case. It's just that the coding needed for this drag and drop to work, it talks to Microsoft, because PowerPoint is a Microsoft type program. It's made by Microsoft, and so therefore the coding language it has, VBA, Visual Basics, is a Microsoft compatible code. So I just wanted to let you know that. But that doesn't apply to all my macro games, because as you saw, my coloring games I showed you, they work on a Mac. So it just kind of depends what information the code is taking from the computer at the time for the game. And for me, my drag and drop games are taking information from the computer that it can't get from a Mac. The other thing I want to point out that's important to consider is some of my PowerPoint games offer the opportunity for you to add your own targets, like drag and drop in some things or import them, change the layouts to add words or images and words. And if that's the case, then you obviously are going to need the version of PowerPoint that allows you to edit, okay? Because you can't edit this file if it's locked down, because you only have the view version. Now, do be aware, the majority of the games in my store, you do not need to be able to edit. And if you do need to be able to edit them, it will say in the description on Teachers Pay Teachers that it's an editable game, that it has the ability for you to add your own targets. The majority of my PowerPoint games will work in the kind of PowerPoint that will open up on your desktop. It has to still be on your desktop, whether it be Mac or Windows, but on your desktop, even if it's the free version that won't let you edit, okay? And it just lets you view PowerPoint shows, because that doesn't matter, because you're just viewing it and playing it. I hope that made sense. Alrighty. And then 2 more things I want to mention about macro-enabled games. One is that for macro-enabled games, you're going to need PowerPoint 2016 or later. There's no 2013 option. They might work on 2013, and that's why I offer the free version for you to try, but I cannot guarantee that they will, because when I code these, I code them to work on 2016 and later. This is 2019 you're looking at here, but it works on 2016 as well. And the other thing I want to say, 2 things. Macro-enabled games, because they've got coding in the background, have a lot of information that gets uploaded to TPT or my website and downloaded from TPT or my website. And so if there's an issue that happens during the download, if you've like clicked away very fast, you've then also tried to download something else, your internet did a little glitch or something, any one little part of the piece of the game could get messed up in the download. So if you've followed the tutorial that's included in the game, there will be tutorials included in the game. You've followed all the steps and it's still not working, try going to your purchase section and downloading it again. And sometimes that really makes all the difference. It might have just been a little glitch in the download. Extract the new file, it'll be a new clean file, and it'll be there. The other thing to consider, how long your file path is. So imagine if you saved this game here into My Documents, Speech Therapy Activities, Teletherapy Activities. So like inside Speech Therapy Activities, you had a folder called Teletherapy Activities, and inside that you had a folder called Articulation Activities, and then inside that you had a folder called Brooks Board Games from TPT, and then another folder that says the St. Patrick's Game. Like that's a really long file path, right? That's what it's called, a file path. Or the journey in which your computer takes to find that file on your computer is a long journey, as opposed to having it saved in your documents in a folder, right? With macro-enabled games, so not all games, just my macro-enabled games, which is not many of them, this can mess up. This can mess up and be a reason why it's not working, is because you've got long file paths, especially on a Mac. This is a big issue on a Mac. So all you have to do is go and move the files out of all those different folders inside folders and just move them to like your documents or your desktop or you're somewhere else or even just put them in a folder in your documents that's called interactive board games or macro-enabled games or something like that. It's going to probably make a huge difference for you, because when a macro-enabled game is being played, the computer is going back and reading that file each time, the code in that file, and it's kind of like the journey that the code has to take is longer. That's how I seem to understand it. But that is a known issue, so do think about that. Okay, so I hope this was helpful. I just tried to think of everything that you need to know to make playing PowerPoint games really fun and accessible. Now I just want to point out to you where you can find PowerPoint games. So if you want to find my PowerPoint games, you can go to my store, which is Simply Speaking SLT on TPT, and then you can go down to where it says PowerPoint games. So I've got PowerPoint board games, which is a subcategory, but PowerPoint games is all my PowerPoint games. And you'll find them all here. And if you want to find the free ones, you can just hit free. And if you want to see my bestsellers, you can organize by bestseller. But if you know I've recently launched something, you can organize by most recent. If you're looking for a particular theme, you can just search my store as well, which is another option. So there's a bunch of different things in here. And all right, now I just want you to know that if this video has not been helpful enough to resolve any issues you might be having with PowerPoint, and the tutorial videos within the product download was also not able to fix any issues you may be having, please feel free to reach out to me. My email is at the bottom of every single TPT listing in my store and also on my website. Take care, guys, and remember, reduce the prep time and increase the fun.